Hello and welcome everybody to this THWACK Livecast. My name is Kevin Spanberg, and today we're going to be talking about, well, basically your NOC and what your NOC's role is in your cloud first data center, because a lot of our customers have been talking, and it turns out a lot of you are using cloud things. Surprises literally nobody. So we'll start a little bit about myself. My name, if you're not familiar, I am Kevin Spanberg. I am the THWACK community evangelist, which basically just means I want people to get on our community. If you are here, that's already happening. You have a chat over yonder, I believe. Let me check. Yeah, over there. So we have people live in the chat to go ahead and answer any questions you have. If you're watching us during this live stream, if you are not, then please post your questions on THWACK. I have been a SolarWinds user for roughly the last 15 years. I will tell you that this past Saturday was my 13th. Yes, my 13th THWACK anniversary. It was my cake day on THWACK. So I was very happy to see that. And I've held all manner of jobs everywhere, including building up the NOC. But I'm the least important person on this chat today. The most important person is Howard. Howard, tell everyone about yourself.
Hello. Howard Williams Jr., guys. Been around NOCs for a little while, maybe about 25 years. So I've been building and standing up for different companies, know a little bit about IT, and I'm so excited to be here to be a guest, Kevin. So I'm ready to jump in and share the knowledge.
Okay. Well, Howard, before we can jump in, let's go back in history a little bit. I want to talk about what's previously happened on THWACK Livecast. So we've had these starting last year, and we've had them all through this year on various different things. And if you're interested in any of these, after this stream, you can come back to this page. That's thwack.com/livecast. And down at the bottom half will be the archive, and you can go in and watch any of them. Can't participate in the chat because it's not happening live, but we do have the comments available there, and people are tagged on those, so we will respond to those if you have any questions for follow-up. Specifically, the last time that we spoke, Howard and I, we were part of this series, and we were talking about, why you even need a NOC. And so that was last one, and it was, well, I'm going to be very quick on this. What did we cover? Well, we talked about why you need a NOC. We talked about how do you get your IT teams for buy-in. We talked about how, the difference between bottom-up and top-down monitoring. We talked about building that NOC teams, because let's say you got buy-in, now you got to build a team that, works with you on that. And then the importance of getting parts, having a touch point meetings, making sure you have those loopbacks set up, and then, starting small, but getting big impact. I think a lot of these we're going to hammer through again today. We're going to start off with something very simple. A lot of us have gone to work remote. Howard, you yourself are not local to Austin, which is the company headquarters. So most of the time you work remote. And
that's correct.
I think one of the things that people may be misinterpreting is that the NOC isn't necessarily a room. In fact, there's a picture here. If we go forward a couple slides, there's a picture here of what my quote NOC looks like. And this is literally just 4 screens stretched across a big monitor that show what I feel are most important for me at this time. And realistically, is that a NOC? Howard, opinions?
Well, it can be, but the NOC could be anywhere because now the NOC is in the cloud. Who knows? One day the NOC will be on the moon. Just a joke, guys. But just looking at it,
horrible. But
yeah, well, we could go there, right? Imagine now
we'll
when
get some
Kevin.
NetPath checks. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So that's a lot of preamble. But what are we going to talk about today? Today's agenda? Actually, Howard, you built this, so why don't you hit the high points on the agenda for me?
Well, on the agenda, we're going to talk about program and summary overview, right? Just getting started, right? Then we'll jump into a timeline and we'll look a little bit about your NOC services. Where, what are we offering? We'll speak to cloud, right? Because that's a lot of our conversation here. Then we'll talk about the secret sauce called the layered approach, right? And once you see that layered approach, it's going to really bring some understanding on where to start from. Then we'll do some assessment, monitoring. We'll talk about adding value. And then for those folks who asked about dashboards and where to stop, we have the answer for you today.
Yep. And We'll also talk about the way that we personally internally use Teams. We have decided to work on the Microsoft stack. It's not saying it's for everyone, and that's fine. It's how we've decided to use it to handle some of our alerting. I know we still do some emails, but Teams webhooks were convenient for us. Howard did an amazing job. We will show an example later, not of the code, but of how it works on the backside, because we're not exposing our webhooks. Sorry. And also how we're using it in different channels for specific threading and tracking purposes, and how we're using it to actually build our standard operating procedures. So first and foremost, we got to talk about a program overview. So one of the questions you have to ask yourself is, what is your program overview? And Howard, you built this to, I don't want to say rationalize, like to influence, like you literally wanted to give this to someone internal in IT at SolarWinds and said, this is why we need it. So can you please just kind of walk us through your ideas here?
Yeah, so just to start out with again talking about the buy-in. When I met with with our CIO here, we talked about what do we want to achieve here? What do we intend to accomplish? So we talked about the services that we provide, our objectives and outcomes, and then most of all the expected result. And I thought about it and I said, hey, why not use a phased approach? And this is what we'll talk about a bit, that approach, phase one, phase two, maybe even phase three. But it's just a way approach that you could use, and an approach that I took here at SolarWinds.
Well, if we're serious with ourselves, it's actually a really good methodology for any project. I mean,
right.
IT projects, home improvement projects, come up with a phased approach, especially if you have that kind of step through idea. And yours took on a lot of heads. It turned into I'm not going to say a hydra because that's bad, but it turned in, like, there were a lot of facets to this, and you outlined a ton of them, if memory serves. Yeah. You even your phase one already encompassed 4 quarters. So
right.
How did you build this phase one?
So
slide that you shared out.
Yeah, looking at phase one, what I wanted to do is I wanted to concentrate on making sure that I had a voice, right? And that voice was heard from the IT team, and they were hearing the same story, SOS, SolarWinds on SolarWinds, monitoring using our products, right? So I wanted to make sure I had a repository for documentation, to explain to them about automation, and then how we would include incident management. So I staged it in quarters here, and you'll see on the next slide, we kind of speaks to those quarters. So
yeah, that one.
yeah. So yeah, that one just kind of shows you clearly, and this is exactly what I use, guys, to get it started. So I wanted to go from quarter to quarter, but it was clear and concise on where I was moving.
I like that you refer to this as crawl, walk, run, because maybe it's only an impression I've gotten outside of IT, but I've frequently felt that people think they can give a project to IT, and IT literally just goes into a room and like hits one of them big Frankenstein switches, and all of a sudden it's done. But it's not. This is, even within your phase, you have phases.
Right.
This is realistically, this is something that PMP, project management professionals, know all too well. But I like that you broke it down like this, because I think this is something that, and with permission, we will totally screen cap this and make it available. I feel like this is something that a lot of our customers can do, whether they are net new to the SolarWinds stack, whether they are looking to migrate between the on-prem and the cloud-based solution, or even if they just want to redo their environment. I mean, I used to rebuild mine roughly every 3 years, keep the database, but build new servers because, operating systems end of life every so often. It's not a bad approach, especially, everything from, the onboarding services, building out your training materials, because you can't do this alone. But I know that you specifically said to each team, look, when we build a network operations center here for SolarWinds, there are specific things that I know you're going to need. And you actually kind of did this research on a team by team basis, I believe. So you started with the network team, right?
Okay.
So network team needed like a handful of things. I think you outlined it on the next. Yeah. They needed a handful of things. So they needed,
Right.
I mean,
No,
and
go
these
ahead,
don't
Kevin.
look,
Yeah.
no, I was just
Yeah.
saying, these do not look like they are incredibly onerous asks. These are,
No.
pretty simple. I need availability and performance and, oh, specifically for the network, I need to know how my ISPs or my, my direct line providers or my MPLS providers, I need to know how they're doing. They need some level of admin. They need remediation, troubleshooting availability, and preventative maintenance. I mean, this feels like, forgive me, I came from a networking background. This feels like my day to day, right?
That's exactly what it is, Kevin. That's exactly
Okay.
what it is.
So you had to
So
have a sit down with them and be like, what's your day like and how can I help?
that's all it was, Kevin. You have to keep it simple with them. The guys are excited about sharing what they do every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
I said, "What's your day to day, your standard day?" And I took notes. I was like, okay, you do this, you do that." But on the back end, I'm thinking, I get to help them with this. I can help them with this, and then we start to really get involved on where they need the help at and things that we can do, the easy low hanging fruit things we can do. First they were
Mm-hmm.
standoffish, now they're calling me, Kevin.
Good.
Yes.
Good, because that's the idea.
Right.
And once you take that onus off the network team, then they get to work on their projects.
Oh,
Whether it's putting in WAN accelerators, swapping out gear, or upgrading endpoints, moving, links up, or switching over to SD, whatever it happens to be.
right.
You've taken some of that load off them. Probably not all of it, because you're going to need their help
Hmm.
and input. But
Hmm.
by you providing this network operations center, you're like, this is a service that we can, you know, we'll help you with that load. Um,
Hmm.
and then you talked to the server team, and I'm assuming
Hmm.
this covered pretty much servers and apps, probably
Yep.
primarily. And honestly, man, these responsibilities look pretty much the same. Uh, I mean,
Easy
aside from the fact
conversation.
that we're missing ISP, but
Right.
that's not in their purview. So it's literally the same discussion. How can I help you? And then you went through, God, what was next? I think we put Vert. Was it the Vert
Yep.
team? I think so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So a lot of these are going to look very similar. The Vert team
Very
says, this
similar.
is what I need. And you're like, yep, cool. And what do you know? Same kind of thing. And then you talked to the storage team, because we were using hyperconverged and some
Hmm.
traditional SAN and a little bit of everything. So this one's a little different.
Right.
We're not going to lie. We all know storage is a little different. So the conversations with them, honestly, storage are their own kind of people, which I love, but it was a slightly different one. And then UC kind of follows network, but kind of doesn't follow network, at least
Right.
for, on net, because I assume we're all on PRIs, or no, probably not on
Right.
PRIs anymore. We're all on SIP trunks, and the
Sip
SIPs are coming
trunks.
on and they still get routed and blah, blah, blah. So you still have the UC discussions. And then we go even further. Honestly, this one, I need to know how this discussion went. When you were talking to the database folks, that I want to know how you approached that, because sometimes they are the most difficult people to kind of pin down this kind of information.
Right.
So if you have tips, now's the time, sir.
So what I did with our database admin, and she's awesome, is I had to be a great listener, right? Because to get to your point, for them to let you in their world, it's different. So I started
Yeah.
asking questions. So I said, how much problems do long running queries really cause? So I got enough information, I gathered enough information around, let's just say DPA, and I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
know, how can I manage my own databases? I want to know on my polling engines how I would troubleshoot. Really? So that
Mm-hmm.
opened up, and she started teaching me about what to look at, what to monitor, what I should look at first, right? So it's you have to make sure that you come into the conversation listening, and they'll tell you everything they need, and then I turned it back on to me. How can I help me help you by watching my own polling engine and database and learning from,
Mhm.
so I can then go across and start monitoring Azure database, AWS,
Yeah.
on and on and on. So that
Yeah.
conversation started, and I was like, so show me what you're monitoring. How do you add monitoring up? How do you set it up?
Yeah. And
It
what's
was,
important to you?
yes,
Because you
yes,
mentioned long running
yes,
queries, and
yes,
sometimes you don't, sometimes you just don't have an option. Sometimes
right,
there's a commercial off the shelf solution
right,
where you cannot add an index or you cannot
right.
play with these things, and there's just nothing you can do. And there's two options. Number one, you learn to live with it,
Mm-hmm.
but watch for it, but don't necessarily alert on it because there's nothing you can do. Or second, take the information you've learned, feed that back to the people that actually sell you that commercial off the shelf software and be like, did you know that this is doing blank? And then they can possibly help you with that. Uh, dude, you had so many meetings, man. Um,
Yes, yes.
and I think after, and then you had to talk to some of our devs. So this is our web
Yes,
team, this is our
yes.
developers. Again, different type of people,
Mm-hmm.
different
Mm-hmm.
level of knowledge, different, let me rephrase that, different depth. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know how to use software.
Mm-hmm.
They know that that particular thing is creating a pointer to a memory address, and I'm just, whoo, done. Thanks. No,
Right,
the application performance side is more important for me.
right, right. So one of
Um,
the things I did, Kevin, to lead into when talking to the web ops, I wanted to see what they were doing, as far as monitoring and how they were leveraging the application monitors, and during our meeting, the course of the meeting, I said, don't want to step on in your area, but I want to learn from you. I want to be
mhm.
able to use the tools that you're using so I can better understand it, so I can teach my guys how to monitor on maybe on a smaller level, but again, we want to learn. So
Yeah.
they start teaching us about the application month, the scripting they were using, and then we start setting up SOPs that we could go in and we could actually remediate some of the issues. How about that one? So
Yeah, because
yeah.
developers, even in a DevOps
Hmm.
world, they are
Hmm.
responsible for a portion of this. They work with the teams that, publish the servers and support it and everything. And that's
Hmm.
great. They're still developers. They're
Still
still
developers.
time. They should be spending as much time as possible clacking at a keyboard, in my opinion. Not every
Right.
organization is like that, but that's where their skills are best.
Yep.
And, a lot of those people tie into cloud things because you
Right.
mentioned Azure, AWS. I know that we're in
Hmm.
both. I know a lot of our customers are in those and
Yep.
GCP and a number of other places. And I wanted, and you and I joked about this, I want to talk about pizza as a service, uh,
Right.
only because I feel like we need to level set
Hmm.
what we mean when we talk about, full on-prem versus infrastructure as a service versus platform as a service versus software as a service. Uh, that like this is what we mean. So we have a lot of customers who do a ton of stuff at IaaS, so
Hmm.
infrastructure as a service, and that is uh, what is the industry called? They call it lift and shift. So you could
Hmm.
just pick up this VM and just boop, drop it in a cloud somewhere, and it works. Uh, Tom Larock, one of the head geeks, talks about how that is not the ideal solution because cloud gives you other options, and I 100% agree with that. But if you need a point in time solution to get things off, because I don't know, your on-prem hypervisors, the hardware on them is about the end of life, or your
Right.
back-end storage, you're going to run out of support for it, or you've got a bunch of blown drives, and you just need a solution. I got zero problem with IaaS. In fact, I like it for a handful of things. And then there's, the platform as a service where you don't necessarily worry about the operating system. You don't
Hmm.
necessarily worry about the patching, possibly depending on your vendor. Maybe you don't worry about the backups. They're not your problem. Um, and then SaaS is, of course, it's the dining out. It's the you go to your favorite restaurant and they've got the brick
Right.
oven pizza and they give you, the three forks and the whole thing and you get a little glass of wine. Yeah. I mean, that's the idea behind software as a service. You are hands off. The trouble with that is that because you are so hands off and you own virtually none of the infrastructure, in fact, you probably own none of it,
None of
It's
it.
still your responsibility. So that led to a completely different discussion when you were talking about the NOC for the people that work the cloud, like the I jokingly call them the wizards, because
Right.
their heads are always in the cloud. But you talked about that, about like the managed cloud services and the fact that we've got stuff everywhere. I mean, we've got uh, just to rattle off the ones I can think of. I know we've got databases. I know we've got virtual machines. I know that we've got a bunch of web properties. I assume that means we have containers out there. We've got stuff everywhere, and this you bundled up under our managed cloud services
Mhm.
kind of umbrella. And you pulled something out here that I thought was absolutely brilliant. Is that it doesn't necessarily matter where those services live. You're in IT. You're still responsible for it.
They're responsible for it. You're on the hook.
Yeah. So who did you have to go to actually have this managed cloud services discussion? I mean, you already mentioned web ops. I'm assuming they were involved, but and the DB people, but there had to be other teams internally that were using some portion of this.
Well, we have, of course, a virtualization team. There's a team
Mm-hmm.
that deals, we're kind of siloed in different groups. Of course, we talked about silos, but it's
Yeah.
there. And I work with some of the developers as well, learning their environments, and some of the things that they were actually involved in. So I said, teach me. I want to understand uh, areas and where I could probably add value for you, right? So again, to your point, Kevin, it falls back on IT. Wherever the services are coming from, still there's monitoring in place, and there can be monitoring in place, and you want to know where it is. So I was going from team to team, just asking, okay, so tell me about your cloud piece. How can I help?
Mm-hmm.
What are you using today? Let's see if I can do a comparison and see if we can monitor here and make sure that we're getting those critical services monitored. So it's just you just probe, probe,
Yeah.
and then you'll find
Gently,
out that
but probe.
yeah, 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 of course. And what'll happen is they'll start telling you and speaking to those individuals, those experts, those subject matter experts, and those are the trainers. They really teach you how they want it monitored and the value and then the critical points. And that's what you want to know. So you ask questions and then you'll get the answer, but you just gently probe. You're correct.
Mm-hmm. And active listening.
Oh,
Honestly, the best thing I
oh,
ever did
ooh.
was, and it again, it's a me thing. If I could have a meeting in an office with someone, I preferred that they could bring their laptop, but I didn't bring mine. I brought a notepad
Hmm.
and like a steno or a legal pad and a pen. For me, if I write it, I seem to remember it better. And instead of me like looking at a pop up or something else that came on my screen, it wasn't a concern. All right, so you've got these, and there were more obviously, but you discussed it. There's like these 8 factors
Yes,
that actually
yes.
kind of like bundle up and turn into your
Hmm.
overall NOC services. And that's great because you know what? A lot of these were kind of duplicates. Um, so yeah, we have the cloud stuff, and then on the next slide, we just grab it all together and we
Right.
say, boop, this is actually what it does. So you take your net, your server, VM, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, all the teams, everybody. And then this is what you build because this is what you're offering. You're offering to take this off someone else's plate. And
Right.
they're they may be ultimately responsible for it, but they don't have to necessarily worry about the care and feeding of it. You'll take that
Right.
on. You'll be the one watering and mowing their lawn, but when they want to, plant new bushes, they still get to do that. Landscaping is probably not the ideal analogy, but you understand.
Yeah,
You are almost you're a service as a service, NOC as a service,
I
where
am a
you're taking that off them.
that is
Okay.
that is correct. So this is what you build. This what you're looking at is the knock. That's it.
Yeah.
Services, services, service. You have a catalog of services now that you offer out, and you really bring value back to the company. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
To your point, Kevin, it lets the engineers be creative, and be engineers. And that's the goal.
And I think the question here is where to get started.
Right.
And that honestly doesn't matter whether you're on cloud or on-prem or some type of hybrid, or you're in, a gov cloud, or if you're locked somewhere else. I think the big question, where do you get started? And I remember thinking, this is earlier this year, we're talking about the SolarWinds user groups, which thank you again for being a part of, sir. And I asked you, how did you figure this out? And you literally sent me a slide that I kind of redid a little bit for prettiness. Excuse me. I'm very particular about colors. But it was, here are the layers we're looking at. And you said, we're just going to use the OSI model as our check marks. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? So can you talk to this for a hot second, just to explain your thinking on this and the methodology that you kind of gave out to the rest of the team?
Yes. So again, sometimes you have to borrow a little bit. And I saw this once used and matter of fact, it was one of our engineers here had it, and I was like, hey, give me that. This is what I need to explain to our customers, right? By using the layered methodology, scale up from an OSI level, it gives you a great starting point. Our next slide really speaks to it, but just go layer from layer, right? Yeah. And so what I did was, after I looked at it, Kevin, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Now I know how to prioritize my onboarding. I know how to identify the common services. Now, hey, I can build a training curriculum. How about that?
Yeah.
From this
more than anything, to hand it out, so you're not the only person doing this work.
Right. And then now, okay, this integrates with this product. This is NCM. Oh, IPAM. Oh, wow. Now I see how all these integrate now. And by the way, along the way, I'm creating that roadmap, right? And wow, then I have goals I can write and objective. It all boils into just this one slide of, wow, this is a great approach. Great approach.
Yeah. And if you're an existing SolarWinds customer, I have told people, and I'm going to say it again, I will probably say it at the end, we want your feedback on this. We always want your feedback. That's why we do things like this. But I'm really digging SolarWinds Observability and the plethora of tools it has and it's constantly expanding, which I think is a lot of fun. And you don't have to upgrade it. It just expands, which, let's be serious, no one likes going through upgrades and patching. And if you put that on someone else, great. I love this idea because in the previous slide, and I know you showed that one at SolarWinds user groups, and that was great. It really broke down under our quote legacy terms, basically the Orion platform. And the new one says, look at how much of this is being consolidated. You are literally going from 14, I think I counted 14 or 15 independent products. And then you're going to the roadmap complete one, and you're talking 5? You're talking WPM, SRM, DPA, hybrid cloud observability, SolarWinds observability. And I'm like, this is amazing. This is the way to do it. Tool consolidation, breaking down the silos, making sure the people don't, lose their mind, honestly. Making sure that you have a roadmap, making sure, and if you want to do, and you can even use this in reverse. You can say, because you got your roadmap for getting things in, right? This is the roadmap. You go from level 1 all the way up to level 7 until you get your things in. And then when you're talking about like your layer 8 and 9, which we didn't label here, but y'all know what those are. When you're talking about your layer 8 and 9 here, that's where you think about the alerting and the channels and the way you do that. And that is more of from like the application/service level. That's where you look at that. And then as long as you've got all the layers underneath, you can find all the parts, and then you can build your groups and your dependencies and your notifications and your dashboards, because these are all part of that thing. And this is a great model, and I guess that's why it's been around for almost 35, 40 years now. So
yes.
Yeah, it was eye-opening to realize that this is how you thought about it, because I honestly didn't. All right, so for people who are watching either live, if you're live, please engage in the chats. We will answer them. or if you are new to SolarWinds or just interested in maybe kicking the tires on a couple of these tools, fine, great. We encourage that. We love the feedback, good, bad, and different. What does, excuse me, I didn't want to get out of turn. One of the biggest and hardest conversations to have is, what does today look like? Like, you have to, it's two phases. And I ran into this in my last company, and technically the one before that. You had to talk about your tool assessment, like how large, what are you, what's your cycle on this? How's the care and feeding? What's the size, and then where is it based and how you do. And this tools assessment is for all of IT, because you need to take the time to say, nope, we're going to try to do away with the idea of silos. So everyone needs to give me an honest answer on this stuff. If you literally have a tiny little Win32 app that you wrote in Visual Basic that you think is critical for you to be able to do your job, I want to know about that, because I want to know how I can take that workload off of you, offered as a NOC service, and possibly free up even more of your time. And then I think this was the harder conversation for you, like sizing the team, because you have six directs who are, their job is the operations center. But you have a lot of proxies. Like you mentioned Smitha, and you didn't mention her by name. Sorry, Smitha. You mentioned like some of our database people. You mentioned some of our network, you talked to network. So you had a lot of proxies, like the subject matter experts in the various spaces. So do they go towards your staff count? Maybe. And then, if you're still on an on-prem solution, does this have to be a follow the sun thing? Does it need to be 24/7, 365? Who's responsible for making sure all the things are good? If you're in a data center, who makes sure there's good cooling? That if you are in Southern California, that the cooling tower is working and your servers aren't overheating or something like that. And then who's responsible currently for the care and feeding and making sure that the responsible parties are told when something went bad? And then who's responsible? And this last one, honestly, is something that I think every company can take a little bit of time and do a little better job with. It's on and offboarding, not just people. You did a great job at telling your telling your team how to kind of learn more, but also about the things that go in and out of monitoring. Because if we're 100% honest with ourselves, IT never stops changing. So there's always going to be something falling out, and there's always going to be something new coming up to replace it.
That's awesome, Kevin. You just answered a question that a lot of new NOCs have issues with in starting and understanding. These are the things that will continue to happen, right? And I think the key takeaway from this is remember that you want to be an extension to the teams. They're the subject matter experts, but there is such a need in all these teams with handling the low-hanging fruit, the things that the reoccurring things that just happen over and over, and then finally they say, "Okay, let's write an SOP. Let you guys can do this." You've proven yourself.
Enough is enough.
Enough is enough. Yeah.
And one of the things I found out, and this is again going to my last company, and I've spoken to people at AWS reInvent and Gartner's IOCS, and a lot of them are in this mindset that they want tool consolidation. And I threw this together, this little slide about consolidation, just because I wanted to make sure people realize that, and not necessarily pure SolarWinds, but try to consolidate your tools as much as possible. In this example, I've got, a handful of things. And of course, I work for SolarWinds. I'm going to talk about their solutions. We've got the consolidation of Network Performance Monitor and some other product that does NetFlow, and then another product that does, some NCM stuff, and then another product that does, that also does NetFlow stuff, and then another one that does IP address. And we've seen this. We have both. I know you've been places where they used a specific, what do they call it? DDNS. There's a terminology for the tools that like handle all of the IPing thingies. And maybe it's time to just look at reducing that particular tech stack.
Right.
Because I don't necessarily want to have everything because that's a lot of extra work. If you can
Yes.
make this simpler, then let's make it simpler.
Right.
So for us, SolarWinds, we decided to go whole hog on our product stack, shocking absolutely nobody who's watching or listening to this, because we know it's powerful, we know it's good, and honestly, we enjoy working with in the teams, but you had to come up with something that you had to present back to management on a fairly routine basis, and that was all about like, hey, how are you going to show value in this? And there's short-term value. Hey, did you know that we knew about this WAN circuit being down before anyone else did?
There you go.
No, I did not. Or hey, we let these things. So you broke that up into kind of like three major buckets. I got
Hmm.
things to do, I've got things I'm currently doing, and I say I
Hmm.
mean the team, and
Right.
things that are done. And you got a really nice list here. Because you're gonna have stakeholders, and
Right.
let's make sure they know.
Right.
So that's
Yeah, it's really important that we're on the same page and there's no secrets. It's visible, it's there, it's the vision, it's the company's
mhm,
vision, right? And what we want to do is we want to be on a common ground, and the most important is how do we restore the fastest way we can restore service? How can we be
mhm,
proactive instead of reactive, right?
yeah,
So these are the things that we have to do. We have to do together.
yeah,
We're one team, one voice, and
yeah.
this is a
And I'm
way
just
it'll
gonna
work. Go ahead.
and I just want to pause real fast here, and I'm going to talk to the producer. Can you move forward a couple of slides where we're actually breaking out the breakdown? Because uno mas, please. Gracias. There are very specific things here. Like your done list is incredibly long, and that's a testament to you, sir. Um, Obviously, there's still some stuff to do. You're
Oh, yes.
uh, So tell me, because I'm curious, from
uh,
your done list, what was the most complex or the one with the most moving parts? If you just had to have a quick summary about it.
Communications,
Oh,
by uh,
yeah.
being well. You hit something that was really key. Being a listener. All this,
Mm,
all the done stuff comes from that, from from
yeah.
from sharing ideas, from just over and over being a steward and making sure that the teams understand that you're a part of their teams. And what happens is you start to get that information you need. And what used to be hard is, pulling teeth or pulling.
Mhm.
It's no longer a challenge. Those teams are just flowing with. Okay, here's how I can write here's an SOP I just wrote for you. Where at the
Yeah.
beginning, it was like,
They're giving you a recipe so they don't have to make that bread anymore. That's
oh,
great. You're just giving them the bread at the end of the day.
that's all I'm doing, Kevin. It's it's
Hmm.
it's just sharing, and they have to know that you care. And this is something that I told them when something is down in our environment, I feel it just like you feel it. And it's
Hmm.
important that we restore as soon as we can. So what you're doing is you in preparation to if this happened and when it happens, because we know it's going to happen, right? We're
Yeah.
going to be prepared, but not as a silo. We're going to be prepared as a team,
As an
a
IT org
team,
as a whole.
IT
Um,
org as a whole. Yes.
and for me, who has taken very basic introductory project management courses,
Mhm.
this reads like a Kanban board.
Mhm.
Not gonna lie, this feels very Kanban. So where are you? I guess you drew a little circle on the next slide where you said
Uh-huh.
this is where we currently are as a thing. Because I'm sure you have to, things are moving back and forth between the slides, but you have to tell someone. So we're currently in the doing state.
Hmm.
Well, I guess in IT we're always in a doing state. But
Right.
how's that going? Are you?
So
You mentioned dashboards earlier, and that you're absolutely enjoying way too much playing with them. But
yeah, and I was afraid that was going to happen, Kevin, but it's too late. I'm watching Crystal and you. I gotta stay away from your videos. That's my problem. Because I'll see you
Hey,
guys
man.
out there doing something, and I'm like, what? You mean I can do this? So
Yeah.
what I'm doing currently right now, we're hybrid cloud. We're playing around with it. I'm creating these modern dashboards, right? And I blame you and Crystal for it. And because
Guilty as charged. Lock me
after
up.
SWAG, watching the experts go at it, I'm like, I'm taking this part and that part,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm not.
No, just going to get some nice shiny rims on that wheel. Yeah, but that's
Yep.
the idea, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it's that
Yes.
one of the reasons I am still with SolarWinds after many, many years is that I love that our customers, when they
Hmm.
find a cool thing, they share that
Right.
on the community. So I will every so often go onto THWACK. Actually, I think I have a notification turned on. Whenever something new gets added to like modern dashboards, I get like a notification, so I can be like, "Who added what?" And I can look at it and be like, that won't fit for my scenario. Oh, but I think if I change it like this, maybe I can." So I spend probably an unhealthy amount of time scrutinizing all the stuff that goes into the content exchange with good reason, because I'm a passionate technologist.
Right.
I want the pretty. And
Right.
realistically, you and I both know this. If it's not pretty, sometimes people don't look at it.
That's correct. That's correct.
All right.
Pretty and simple.
Yeah. So that leads to the big question:
Um,
what do you need to see? And that is really something you need to give to each of the teams. Like, you
mhm,
talk to the database team, say, what do you need to see? You talk
mhm,
over to the network team, what's important to you? You go talk to the apps team, what's important to you? Or maybe
mhm.
just the team that runs servers or Vert or ad infinitum. What's important to them?
Right.
Because I don't want to build a dashboard for Kevin. You don't want to
No.
build one for Howard. You
No.
want to build one for, just picking on someone, for the storage admins.
Hmm.
You want to build
Hmm.
one for them and then encourage them to duplicate it and make their own edits,
Right.
because your team is responsible for getting all the data in and massaging the alerts, but it's all of the consumers of the solution that are the ones that have the power. They're the ones that can create their own reports. They're the ones that can build their own dashboards. They're the ones that can, if you allow them, change some of the views or
Right.
play with the alerts. And that is a very trusted thing to build up.
Hmm.
But it starts off as, again, ask questions, and then the second part of that is get inspired. This is, you and I are both like this. I loved having it to user groups because you got to see what a lot of our customers are like, and probably like shoulder surfed with them when they showed you something neat that they did.
Yes. Yes.
Because you, me, the entire user group team, we're only so many, but all of the
Right.
customers out there who have done something cool. I have
Hmm.
literally had someone, and I'm watching them do something. I'm like, I knew you could do this, but I haven't had the time to do it. Can you please send me that?
Right.
Or better yet,
Right.
can you please share that on THWACK so I can download it and everyone else can work with it? And they were like, yeah, sure. And I encourage people to do that. The modern
Hmm.
dashboards is just honestly the most recent pretty version of that. But
Hmm.
the alerts, the reports,
Yes.
the application pollers, all of that stuff is just amazing. So then you dig into, you spoke with the network team, and the
Hmm.
network team basically trusted that the local gear was fine
Hmm.
most of
Hmm.
the time, unless they got an alert. What they
Right.
didn't trust was the ISP.
There you go.
So did you build this, or did you ask them to build this? I'm just curious.
I built it. I did.
You built this one?
Because of
Okay.
you, Kevin, I built it. See, I'm blaming you guys again.
I will take blame on this. This is a great thing. If this is what that team needed, you can
Right.
totally throw me in front of that particular bus, because they're getting what they need to be actionable. And
Right.
realistically, this looks incredibly boring. You know
Yeah.
what? A boring dashboard means things aren't broken. So
Right.
this is a great, I mean, seriously, man, this is great. This tells me A, B, C, things are trying,
Hmm.
there's been a spike here, there's been a hit there. Hey, we got some latency or whatever.
Hmm.
Great. But then for, like, you consolidated some of that information. He said, you know what?
Hmm.
I need to know. And I think this one's possibly more for you and your team. It's like,
Right.
tell me everything that's been reported. And you created an
Yes.
events dashboard. Now, I know
Yes.
you got inspired from one that was on THWACK, but
Yes.
completely customized this, which is amazing. And scale of 1 to 10, how hard is the SolarWinds query language?
After playing and writing my first select query, I was like,
Mhm.
you got to be kidding me. What?
Yeah, that's all it
Navigation?
is.
Are you?
Mhm.
I was like, this is huge. I know a
Yeah.
little bit about SQL to be dangerous, but when I saw this, no more join statements. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
I don't need to know which it's a left or yeah. So
No,
everyone who has been
no.
off of modern dashboards because you have to learn SWCL, which you do not have to learn. Just
Right,
telling everyone out, you
right,
do not have to. You can still build a completely functional modern dashboard without having the query language specialization. However, it does make them a little easier, and you can kind of tune stuff a little more your way.
yes,
But yeah, you
yes,
took this and ran, and I think, let's be serious, like 7 of those are copy pastes. Literally copy, change the thing, copy, change the thing, copy, change the thing, which is great because it still gives you that whole view. Now, granted, what is that? 1.8, my commas. We'll round 1.9 million events. This is
yes,
obviously over the current retention policy for the platform. So if your events are retained for 30 days,
yes,
this is over the last 30 days. Uh,
right,
the real question is this bad? Is this good? And that's kind of why you have these, the down, the warning, the critical,
right,
those kinds of things. Like,
yes.
no, realistically, no, this is just a historical count. So we can
That's what
watch
it
that to
is.
know if all of a sudden it just spikes up. Um,
Right.
and then let's see, where else we go? Oh, the Vert team, because they're dealing with a whole bunch of things. And they're probably one of the people who are most primed to deal with the ones who are probably getting the most amount of push. And I mean this, I don't try to be mean, but probably for why is this not in the cloud yet?
Right.
I feel like they're the team because, like, well, worst case scenario, you lift and shift, you do infrastructure as a service. We're done. Bob's your uncle. But they're still in need. I mean, even for
Yeah.
us internally,
Mm-hmm.
how much of this is our dev environment? We're a software
Yeah.
development company. Like, a lot of this should be kept on prem.
Right.
So, we have 12 vCenters. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I also love that in the right hand, in the bottom one, I think there's like one machine that's like tagged as a Solaris, and I think I just had to laugh at that when I saw that. I don't know if that's a typo when someone selected from the drop down, or we're actually running a Solaris. We're probably running it for some type of test.
Can you imagine that we have over 4,000 different OS flavors out there?
Oh yeah,
Some, yeah, just, I mean, I said 4,000. They're literally, when you add up, so that might be 1,000 running a certain flavor, but
mm-hmm.
just an insight on the different flavors that are out there on VMs. I mean, it's all
Well,
under
the
your
other part
fingernails.
about that
Yeah.
is that is a great thing about the combating the unknown unknowns,
There you go.
because that's the trouble with mine. It's like you don't know what's there, but being able to pull like at the hypervisor level or from the storage, if we want to talk like the storage array level or the application
Hmm.
as opposed to the server, like you kind of get that discovery is not the right word, but you get that information about what I may not know, and that's
Right.
important. And then if we double back to networking, how much do you love NetPath? Because I
Oh,
talk about it all the time.
wow. Kevin, let me tell you, for me and my guys, it's just second nature now. You just throw traceroute out of the window, right?
Mm-hmm.
You mean I can go in and I can see where there are slow response times that are out there. And here's the thing, I can rule out that it's my network. On that particular that diagram there, you can see the milliseconds. You can see where I think it was 143 milliseconds on, but you can see how the data is traversing, the different
Yep.
paths it traversed. Then you can pop up and then look at the criticality, right? Where was it
Yep.
not responding? It's huge. With the
Yeah. And
performance
then,
analysis in this,
oh
this
yeah,
is check and balance. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. And you take this and
Hmm.
you put it at every one of your sites. If you're, especially if you're
Uh,
talking to a SaaS service,
mhm.
my previous company, I contacted the guy who took over for me like right after I left. NetPath was like one release later, and I literally got on the phone and was like, "You need to upgrade." He's like, "Why?" I was like,
Mhm.
"NetPath," and he said, "Why?" I was like, "You guys have a couple cloud services that you're running. They were introductory looking at moving them Microsoft 365 at the time, Office 365. I was like, put one of these NetPath pollers in each of your branch locations. Point them all at outlook.office.com on port 443. He's like, why? I'm like, because you will know 100% if people say Outlook is slow. And then you can immediately say, no, it's not from your location, probably on your machine specifically. Let me send a local tech out to look at your machine because it's not a wider network problem. Or maybe it is.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. That's a good point.
No. Point. I was just saying, if it turns out to be a problem with someone like Microsoft, and I'm picking on them for Microsoft 365, and they have an extended outage, depending on the way you have your contract written, you may get a discount. So it's nice to have this record.
Right. And one of the things I want to point out, guys, just an easy way to get started, point out to your ISPs. I'm simply pointing out to all the ISPs. And then the source and destination. So where all my polling engine is, I can see the polling engines and I can see out to the ISPs. So I can record anytime when I have issues with a polling engine, hey, what's going on in that path? And see if there's any issues with the ISPs. So it's incredible, So please use the tool, guys. Play with it. Very, very easy to set this up.
And it's totally worth it. And you build you build the service once, and then you just add the pollers to it. You're like, I want to talk to, I don't know, Salesforce.com.
Right.
Cool.
Right.
You build that once, then you're like, add a poller, and then you got like 30 things just going across, checking it all the time. All right. With the idea of web, although NetPath can be used for things other than 443, actually any TCP port, but I digress. If we talk about web, one of the things we, software company, runs into a problem with occasionally is maybe our certificates expired because we weren't keeping track of them. Let's be serious. This is one of the best alerts that you can set up. You can literally just monitor for SSL certs for your website to be like, this one's going to expire in 90 days. Send an alert to the web ops team, tell them they need to renew it. This is the CN for it, and this is the current provider of it, and just let them go. I mean, this had to have prevented at least one or two problems. And I can see that we got one warning in there, which means it's probably under 120 days before we need to renew that one. It's probably been renewed since you took the screenshot, but
Kevin, it's a popular screen, believe it or not. All the guys use it. Yeah, and then again, the alerts behind it, we stay ahead. We were able to catch a number of different outages from occurring from the screen because we alert, and then my guys are, if we don't hear a response back from the team, we're like, guys, we're 2 days away. Can you help us here?
Yeah, and, I know you can do it in 48 hours, but can't do it in 16. So please look. Yeah. And then we have our stack integrated with the SolarWinds service desk, and you guys have some alerts going into that for routing, or is it just okay? So you got some stuff going into there for routing, and then of course I think this is the same instance. Please correct me if I'm wrong. That we also use for our internal like service requests, like if I need a new laptop or something. So you can build a dashboard in here and show you how your requests are doing, or see where all your tickets are pointing.
It's a huge it's a KPI for across platforms, right? Well, how am I doing? What type of alerts are coming through? What do we need to focus on? We noticed that now this particular device has alerted 100 times. Why? So it's ways of, it's an audit, right? But it's also a way to keep all the teams informed. This is how the NOC is adding value. These are other things that we've been able to partner and work on together. And look what we're doing now. Look at the number of saves. Look where we are. Yeah. We're communicating now. But now we have an intake.
Yeah, especially for that, because, although the hybrid cloud observability and the SolarWinds observability, the SaaS product, can both do pseudo SLA work.
Right.
The service desk is built for SLA work.
Yes, it
I've
is.
actually had that conversation with people. I'm like, maybe you just, send this to, an ITSM solution that understands all the ITIL stuff and actually understands SLAs and the escalations, and then you don't have to worry about managing, and you let that thing manage it for you. That's neither here nor there. Whatever your solution is, we can do it in-house with our products. Did want to throw a map up because network people, specifically network people, everyone loves a good map. And this is actually a really good map. It's not, doesn't have cool backgrounds, doesn't have flashing lights. It has two things, excuse me, that are yellow.
Right.
That's all I need. Now we cropped the name off of this and because this is a fairly intense map, but yours can look like this, have a name, put things in little boxes. If you have this on a screen, no one has any questions about what's not working.
Right. Right.
Whatever's not green.
Right.
And I encourage people to do that. And the best part about it is those underlying relationships, like this particular interface is connected to that router, which is connected to that switch. As long as you're monitoring all of them, you don't have to map that. We just know, when you put those two things on, it's like, hey, we're going to connect these for you, and we'll just draw the line and put the numbers on it. I also like the flexibilities people have done. Some people have actually taken this and they build groups in the Hybrid Cloud Observability or the Orion platform. And when they build those groups, then they understand where everything is. In fact, you've built groups talking about how the monitoring solution is working itself. You basically built a resource or a set of resources around what's on each of our polling engines internally.
That is correct. So the idea here was to a quick view, a dashboard that any of our teams can look at and say, okay, my device resides here on this polling engine. And for our demo environment, here's the remote collectors and here are the devices here. And I've gotten a lot of kudos from teams saying that, hey, this is a nice view here. A little lengthy, but I can go in and if there's an issue with a particular polling engine and I see these devices having issues, or if I just want to go in and see where they are, where they're located, right?
Yeah.
It's just an easy dashboard. Yeah. They just pull up and they can go right to it.
Yeah. And what's nice about that one is an out of the box. There's no SWCL behind it. It's literally just give me a node list filtered like this. Save, duplicate that thing, try it again. All right, so we've built up a lot of screens, but what do you need to know about? Like when things go bad, there's like the thing that goes bad, I can see it on the screen, but what do you need to know? Like what's important for you to actually take those next steps? And as alluded to earlier, we have some integration with SolarWinds Service Desk, but primarily the chats, and I say chats, the threads I've been seeing on this almost all come into Microsoft Teams, and we kind of go whole hog on that. I honestly just like it. I think it's easy for me. And you decided to do it in channels. Right. Because that way you could segregate. We've got a lot of the stuff redacted. You understand why. But this one happens to be showing just the network alerts. So you have a separate webhook for network-based alerts that in the event that there is a problem, it just shunts it to them. And for the network team, this is honestly enough information for them. I like to be a little more verbose in my alerts. I like to make them clickable, but I came from the email as the only option days. So you wanted to make that. But this is perfectly acceptable. And, you get a running history.
Yes.
Running history of the alerts, the clears. And if someone wants to have a chat about it, you also have the ability to then build up your wiki. And this is where you're keeping your run books. There's just
simple.
Yeah. I see a thing. It looks like this. And even if you wanted to go even further, you could find out the link, which is not hard. You hit the ellipsis, copy the URL to this thing. You could put that in the alert. So when it came through and said gigabit, whatever is down, possible remediation, click here, click, and it would take you over to the wiki. It's all about building this. And you collectively refer to all of this as an SOP.
It's a repository for housing the SOP. So I mirror each channel. So the information for any files associated we're dealing with, or we're sharing Excel, it's under their particular channel on the files. If it's any SOP documents, they know to find them on the wiki. And it's shared out through the whole IT team. So if I want to peek and see what's going on with over at, with the virtualization team and some of the SOPs, I find other teams in other channels learning. So We're breaking down silos.
There's nothing better than a collaboration. Not to mention, you can pull people in from various of those teams.
Yes.
You know, the ones who are actually working the alert in the event that you have a failure that is more than a single point. That you actually have something that, picking on storage, causes this LUN latency to this one virtual host, and that host runs all of these machines, and they're all running like you can pull people from all those teams real quick into that and be like, let's all knock this down real fast, and then we will all update our little kind of run guides to make sure we're hitting what we need. And that brings you back to who your customers are. And I think your idea of like a NOC as a service is brilliant. I actually do know some people who pay for this through a third party. I've talked to them before, and they're like, someone else takes care of that. But you can offer the same thing internally, and you get everybody on board, which is great.
Yep. Absolutely. This is it, guys. At the end, these are your customers. And just remember, they need you as much as you need them. We're one team.
Yeah.
One team. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing. Long story short, you can't do this alone. Don't build it in a silo. Defer to your subject matter experts. Make sure you have people there who can handle it for you. And I know we're running over, so leverage your SMEs. Just want to rattle this stuff off real fast. We will get to some of the questions. We're going to lab, if at all possible. Someone today made a joke that if you work in production, then the world is your lab, and that is petrifying. And please don't do that. Please get a lab set up. Empower your junior admins. This does also include your help desk staff, your service desk staff. Get them, empower them to also help. Get your own SMEs. That's what we just talked about before. Bring in people from everywhere else. This is the act of listening. Listen, absorb, propose, act. You can use whatever you want there, but the whole idea is just pay attention. You're not going to be the expert in every situation. Ask questions, and by asking questions, then take that information and teach someone else, because that will reinforce the rules. And 100% catastrophically, there is no silver bullet for everything. So get your feedback loop started. Talk to your team. Set up your meetings. Once a month, we're going to go over all the alerts you got and talk about what you liked and didn't like. We're going to talk about your dashboards, or maybe we'll have a working session where we do these things. Howard, any final thoughts?
No, Kevin, thanks for inviting me back. And I hope to...
Oh, no. My absolute pleasure, sir.
Yes, I look forward to sharing. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yep. Happy holidays, everybody. If you need more information, we're going to have these links back on this page. In a couple of days, you'll be able to watch this stream straight through. And we're going to have further reading. Go to your Customer Success Center. Pay attention. There's lots of stuff. Take time to read your attend your virtual academy classes, whether they're streamed or live presentations. Full of great chunks of wisdom. Go to the discussion forums, ask questions. Like I said, if you're running into a problem, you're probably not the only one that's ever run into that, and someone out on THWACK may already have a solution for you. We mentioned the content exchange. If you see a dashboard out there that you absolutely love, there's instructions in the right-hand rail when you download that dashboard on how to import it. And then we also have our long-standing video archive. I know we're over time. I'm going to defer real fast, see if there's any questions. I don't see any hot popping up right now. I will get on the chat, and if there's anything there, I will answer. Howard, thank you very much, sir. And I will be dragging you back to the user groups in 2023. So look out for those invites, sir.
I look forward.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And with that, I'm Kevin Sparenberg, and thanks for watching this THWACK Livecast.